It's time to refresh your yard during spring backyard days at the Home Depot. Get low prices guaranteed on propane grills starting at $179, like the Next Grill 3-burner gas grill. Or get $50 off a select Weber Spirit grill and bring big flavor to your backyard. Then set the scene with Hampton Bay string lights that bring it all together. Shop spring backyard days for 7 days at the Home Depot, now through May 6th. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
Trust your instincts and don't hesitate. I said, in practice, trust them and take your shot. If you don't make the play and they make a play on you in practice, but that's where you learn and you find out a lot about yourself as a player, what you can and what you can't do. Because a lot of guys, they'll surprise themselves, man. Now they gain the confidence in it. Now that's going to carry into a game.
Welcome to Football IQ on the Coaching Coordinator Network. This series is about a part of football that matters as much as anything we do as coaches, and that's football IQ. We spend a lot of time talking about scheme, technique, drills, and game plans, but at the end of the day, the players who separate themselves and the teams that play the fastest are usually the ones that understand the game at a deeper level. They can recognize structure, process information, anticipate what is coming, and make better decisions in real time. That's becoming harder to teach. Players today see a lot of football, but they often see it in clips, highlights, and short segments on social media. They're watching plays, but not always learning the game in full context. That's why we wanted to build this series. With Football IQ, presented by American Football IQ, we're going to talk with coaches and teachers of the game about how they develop smarter players, how they train recognition and decision-making, and how they help athletes truly understand what they're seeing. If you want to help your players see the game more clearly and play with more confidence, check out our partner, American Football IQ. They're building tools and resources that help players, coaches, and parents grow their understanding of the game. The link is in the show notes. Let's get into today's episode.
Welcome to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. This is our Football IQ series. Football IQ isn't just plays. It's anticipating defenses on offense, reading routes as a defender, spotting stunts or blitzes before they land. When everyone's fast and strong, the sharpest mind on either side of the ball wins. That's what we're exploring today with a true master. I want to introduce Marcus Klund. He's a linebackers coach and run game coordinator for the Calgary Stampeders in the CFL. We go way back. We coached together at Lindenwood University, Belleville, about 15 years ago. We've stayed in touch since. From playing safety at Lindenwood, 4-time All-Conference and 2-time College All-American, to DC there, then Southwest Baptist as an assistant head coach and defensive coordinator for 9 years, into the CFL with Saskatchewan, Edmonton, now Calgary, where your linebackers helped force the most turnovers last season. Marcus, man, it's good to reconnect. How's life up north treating you?
It's awesome to reconnect with you as always, man. Appreciate you for having me on first and foremost, man. Up north, man, it's going great. Been up here for a few weeks now, kind of getting ready for our rookies to arrive, which they'll arrive that first week of May. So we have rookie training camp with those guys for a few days, and all of our veterans get in, and we hit the ground running, full-blown training camp on May 10th. So, yeah, man, it's going great. Besides all this snow, which is crazy, coming up here. I leave Missouri with some nice weather, and I come up, and it's like snow. So it's trying to adjust to that. But Calgary's a phenomenal city, man. The weather up here is beautiful. Love it up here. People are great. And then obviously, being able to coach in this league, man, it's a phenomenal league. And I'm really enjoying it, man. Enjoying my time up here.
Yeah. How many years has it been now since you've been in the CFL?
Going on year 5. So it's been 2 years, like you said, with the Saskatchewan Roughriders as the defensive backs coach. Spent a year with the Edmonton Elks as the defensive backs coach, and then now had an opportunity to go and join the Calgary Stampeders organization as the linebackers coach and run game coordinator, and going on my second year there. So it's been a blessing, man. Love the league. It's a phenomenal league and really enjoying my time.
What would be your biggest piece of advice for somebody transitioning from the 11-man game to the Canadian game? Like, what are the biggest low-hanging fruit things?
Really, it's still the game of football. There's, a lot of guys that don't know the CFL game. They kind of think it's a big difference, man. It's, at the end of the day, it's football. The box is the box. And, when I talk to guys, down here in the States, biggest thing I tell them is you add one extra wide receiver and we add one extra DB. That's it. That's the difference. The box is the box in regards to protections, run game, pressures, it's all the same. Schemes, pass schemes, coverages, it's all the same. I really tell them kind of, what it's like. It's more like, a down south because, it's a heavy four down front. One thing about the CFL, you'll see a ton of different things. And that's one thing I love about it because there's so much that you'll see that we see defensively from offenses. And then there's so much from an offense that they see defensively. Like I would say a lot more like exotic stuff, like more exotic pressures, more, I would say fully exotic coverages, but a lot of moving parts just because you do have that extra DB. You guys have, offenses have that extra wide receiver. So, for us, we're like a 4-2-5 defense, structure. But then we have that 3 high safety. So kind of like the stack, where you have a 3 high safety that we're used to down in the States. But now we're getting the best of both worlds because you're playing with 12. So we're a 4-2-5, but then we can add that extra safety and play the 3 high, which, as an offensive guy, what kind of problems that gives you guys from an offensive standpoint when you got 3 high safeties and you have no idea where they're going to go. So, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. But that's why I tell you, those guys that coming up is just, man, it's all the same. The football's phenomenal. 3 phases of the game really matter. Special teams is a huge phase of the game up here. And I think that's something, here in the States, like we're coaching it, it's really not a 3-phase game as it used to be. There's just so much taken out of it from a special team standpoint. Up here in the CFL, man, there's no fair catches. You can't fair catch a football. There's a rule that's called the halo rule that we have to give a 5-yard, invisible halo around the returner where we got to allow him to catch the ball and allow him to make a football move when he does. So that part of the game's awesome. So, now you get to see, because, there's a lot of return touchdowns, a lot of punt returns for touchdowns, a lot of kickoffs for touchdowns. Special teams, man, it's a huge difference in the game, man. You definitely win or lose football games up here in the CFL just off of special teams.
And what are the field dimension differences from an NFL field to a Canadian Football League field?
It's bigger up here. Also we play with 12 guys, so it is bigger. The length from goal line to goal line is 110 yards. The end zones are 20 yards with the goalposts in the front. And then the width of the field is 64 yards. So it's a pretty damn big field. And it's fast, man. The speed up here is unbelievable. The talent's unbelievable. But this is going to be the last year of that. So the CFL, they actually made some rule changes. That's not going into effect this year, but it's going to affect in 27 to where they are changing the field dimensions, where it will be from goal line to goal line, it will be 100 yards. They're taking that extra 10 yards out. And then they're shrinking the end zones to where now instead of them being 20, they're going to be 15 yards. And they're moving the goalposts to the back of the end zones. So, CFL has been around for a long time. And that's what everybody's used to. The CFL game is obviously the field, the goalpost in the front. But now, moving that goalpost in the back is going to be definitely a big change for those that's been involved in the Canadian Football League for a very long time, fans, So it will be a little bit of different. Some of them are kind of talking about how, they're trying to make it more Americanized football. And I get it a little bit from those types of, field dimensions. But at the end of the day, man, the CFL rules is what makes the CFL game very unique. That is different. I think there's only a few rules that is the same down in the States, that we know of in the NFL and college. There's only a few rules that are the same, but everything else, man, is completely different. It's a 3-down league. You got 3 downs to get a first down, which is 10 yards for a first down. So it's like basically when I tell guys, hey, just take second down, that we know here, that we know, take second down out of it. You got first, third, that's your first, third, fourth down. So that's our first down, second down, third down. So our second down is like what we used to down in the States is third down. So yeah. And then we got to stay, line of scrimmage for the defense, man, we're a yard off the ball. So, like we're used to down there, line of scrimmage is, we share the exact same line of scrimmage, but up here, man, it's a yard difference. So it's awesome, man. I love it. A lot of people think of it. How does that change things from a box, from a line of scrimmage, from D-line to O-line? A lot of people think it's a little bit more of an advantage to an offensive line with the D-line being off a yard instead of being on them attacking. But I think it's a little bit more of more advantage for, a defensive line. So yeah, it's awesome, man.
So I'm just intrigued. I just started thinking about hey, the basic differences because I'm not consuming the CFL all the time. So why do you think that's an advantage, having the D-line a yard off?
I just think from a speed standpoint, I think there's more that a D lineman is able to set up on an offensive lineman with a little bit more space. And even going from a coverage standpoint to DBs, from a press standpoint, man, I think, I've been a long time DB coach, down there in the States too. And, when I'm pressing, man, we're like on the line of scrimmage. But now, with that being that yard off, man, I think it allows the DB a little bit more room. Now, the one disadvantage that you can't do in the CFL from a press standpoint that you see a lot of down there is like the, a lot of them call it like the motor mirror technique, where it's an inch step that the DBs will. You're a yard off if you're doing any type of motor mirroring technique or inch step, and all you're doing is you're giving that receiver more space. So the peer step is huge. So, I think there's a lot of people down in the States kind of get away from the peer step because it's on the line of scrimmage. They're not so much the lateral step. They want to inch back to give a little bit of ground. But like I tell the guys from the States that, our coach that come up here, it's like, they're used to the peer stepping back, but by the time you set your feet to slide to match a receiver, you're basically a yard off the line of scrimmage. So then now up here, it's like, hey, we're already a yard off. Now we're truly peer stepping. It's a lateral step. We don't need to take an inch steps back. There's a big positive there for the DBs up here compared down there. But then also, like you said, from a D-line standpoint, I just think, the speed that gives them a little bit more room to gain a little bit more speed on the offensive lineman instead of being on the line of scrimmage. They take a step and now, you might be able to get a quick set by an offensive lineman. Offensive lineman may be able to get hands-on quicker when the line of scrimmage is the same compared to when we have a little bit more space, a little bit more room. Now I think we're more at the advantage with our speed and athleticism to where now it's kind of keeping offensive linemen a little bit more on their toes and waiting for us to come to them type deal.
Yep. It's definitely interesting. I know we can keep going on that. Going back to when you were a player, you were a 2-time college All-American. You were all-conference 4 times. Those are great accolades. I remember hearing your name in that part of the country before I even started coaching with you. So as a player, what clicked for you early on? What made you play faster than other people or play intelligently than other people?
I wasn't the biggest, man. I'm a 5'9.5". I always say, hey, I always tell people I'm 5'10", but we know how it is. So, not the biggest, not the fastest, but I knew for me to be able to play at a high level and to be able to compete, I knew I had to be a student of the game because I tell my players all the time, man, it's once you're a true student of the game slows down because the minute that the game slows down for you as a player, then you're playing faster than the game. And then that's where, guys really become pretty damn good football players. They're a student of the game. They understand the game and they can anticipate things a lot more than what others that aren't students of the game. And all that does is allows them to process things quicker and put themselves in positions to make plays more and do it more consistently. So, that to me, I knew I had to be a student of the game. I had to gain my advantage over my opponents mentally by film study, preparation, knowing my job first and foremost, knowing my job inside and out. And then also, knowing what the other positions around me, what are their jobs too? Because once I understood what my job was and I understood, okay, hey, this linebacker's drop is this or this linebacker's fit is that. So now I know how to work with my teammates and know how to play off of what their responsibilities are. What I can do, what I can't do, what I can try to jump something or, try to take advantage. I think that's where some guys, they kind of get to this level. And it happens all the time in the CFL. And I tell my players all the time, man, take chances. And I think it's something I did a lot in my career. And I think that helped me, but I did a lot in practice. And I tell my players all the time, man, I said, trust your instincts and don't hesitate. I said, in practice, trust them and take your shot. If you don't make the play and they make a play on you in practice, but that's where you learn and you find out a lot about yourself as a player, what you can and what you can't do. Because a lot of guys, they'll surprise themselves, man. They're like, oh, damn, I didn't know I could do that. But now they gain the confidence in it. Now that's going to carry into a game. We're not going to lose. We're not going to lose a game in practice, So take your chances, man. Trust your instincts. And I think that's where guys have to build their instinctual awareness and instincts as a player. That's all through practice and preparation. So, as film practice. But that's how I was, man. That's how I was just try to use my football IQ, man, and really understanding the game. I knew I was wanting to be a coach. So, I think, being a player in the game and learning that way from a player's perspective too. And then it's just helped me become the coach I am today, obviously as a player through college.
Yeah, I think that's a common thread with guys that ended up being coaches, right? When they were players, they were the type of person that took ownership and saw their role as like a player coach, really. No, that's great. That's great insight. Love that. Practice is important. No matter what Allen Iverson ever said about it, it's important. Obviously, football coaches, one of the common themes, as I've talked to people is they played other sports coming up. Did you play other sports coming up?
Yeah, that's critical, man. I think that's kind of almost it seems like it's almost like a dying art with the youth of today. Growing up, man, obviously football, played baseball, played basketball, ran track, always out doing things with friends, was never home, just never home. We were always out doing something, backyard football, playing wiffle ball, playing baseball. I think that every single sport man, brings something to you as an individual athletically that another sport doesn't do. For an example, baseball. So let's just talk about what baseball did for me. I was a center fielder in baseball, but baseball taught me really good eye discipline, or like eye coordination, into being able to run and track a ball. That translated a lot, for me when I was a college football player as a safety. I think I ended up with my career 14 interceptions or something like that in my career at Lindenwood. And a lot of it was because it was tracking the football, finding the football, tracking. But that's what baseball did. Baseball, at a young age, because I started playing baseball before I started playing basketball or football. And then basketball, basketball really good with feet, lateral movement, your hands. I mean, it's your hand-eye footwork. I mean, everything that you need from a basketball standpoint to be able to dribble and move. I mean, and then obviously track, you're running. And the one thing I never did in high school was wrestle. And I love, just like you, coaching college football when I was recruiting kids, man, I loved recruiting and going after guys that wrestle. And it's just because of just what wrestling teaches them. And some of the best players I've ever coached were wrestlers.
Amen to that. I agree with that.
I tell guys all the time, man, it's, play everything. Even players I have that have kids, man, I'm like, dude, your kids have them play everything. Don't just let them get stuck on one thing. Now, if they get older and, they're in that, high school and they want to focus on a few things, I get it. But man, let your kids play as much as they can, because that develops so much for them athletically, mentally as kids, man. It's extremely important.
That's great. So you've mentored defenders across multiple levels, and you've coached linebackers, DBs. You've been defensive coordinator through college ball and the run game coordinator now at the CFL level. What's kind of like the first thing that you do with new guys? I mean, do you want to check to see where their knowledge is? How do you handle that? And how do you then work from that framework, knowing each individual may not know the same thing that person next to them does?
Yeah. I always, when I do first, you just talk a little football with them, kind of see what their knowledge is, see how much they want to talk football. Because if you do start talking football and they're very engaged, I'm like, all right, this guy's a football guy. He loves football. He loves to talk football. If a guy kind of shies away, doesn't really want to talk a whole lot about football, I say, okay, now you got to kind of question his love for the game of football. Now, I understand, too, as a coach, man, even at the professional level, these guys that I coach, they do not love the game of football as much as I love it. I mean, it is what it is, right? So I can't expect them to love and do the things that I prepare the way I prepare, because how much I love the game. Now, that doesn't mean they don't love the game. There's guys that love the game, but I think that's one thing for us as coaches. We kind of lose that we expect, the guys that we coach to have that same type of passion, the love for the game that we do. And in all reality, they don't. Some of them don't. And we're lucky if we get that one, man, that just freaking lives, and it's all football, But, the other thing too, when I get guys, I'm a big relationship guy. I am huge in relationships, because to me, that's when those guys know that you care for them, even at the professional level. I mean, I tell my guys, grown men, man, I love you. I'm here for you. I'm going to do everything I can for you, because the minute that the players know that the coach is going to do everything that he can for them to succeed, to have their back, those guys will do anything for you. You can coach them hard. You can hold them to a high standard, because they know they got you, that you got their back, that you really, truly are doing something for them to make them better. And, here at the professional level, man, I'm here to get these guys the paycheck that they want, that contract that they want. And a lot of these guys, want to go back down south in the NFL and play in the NFL. So it's like, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can and give them 100% me to do that for them. So that's the biggest thing, man. When I first kind of get guys, you talk a little bit of football, see where they're at. And then I make sure that they know, man, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I know this is your dream. Obviously, this is my dream too, coaching professional football, but I'm here for you to make sure I'm doing everything I can to give you knowledge-wise, to hold you accountable, to coach you hard, and to help you get where you really want to be. You want to be the highest paid player in this league, then, hey, we're going to do that. We're going to work that way. If you want to go back to the NFL, and hey, we're going to do that, So that's just how I am. And I always make sure I'm pretty upfront with those guys, and that helps me a lot as a coach.
Well, 100%. I think that's a common theme with the good coaches. Relationships are vital, because, ultimately people don't care about, what they know. They care about, how you make them feel, right?
Exactly right. That's right.
Yeah. And I remember, working with you and how important it was for you to build relationships with the families when you recruit guys, and, taking care of them when they were there, making sure that you were a big brother to them, essentially, and guiding them, So I think that's important. There's no doubt. We're talking about football IQ, but, to really tap into where these individuals are at, I think coaches need to be able to know the individuals.
Absolutely.
Not everybody learns the same. Not everybody cares at the same level. And to your point, we got into this because we have a love for the sport, and we're yearning for something. We still want to compete, but not everybody that we teach is going to be on that same level. So just kind of dive in a little bit deeper. Football IQ is layered. It's spatial awareness. It's emotional control. It's pattern recognition, like multiple brains on the field. How do you teach that to linebackers? I know it's not just one way, but like film, live reps, or trust and instincts when offenses throw a look they haven't prepared for. How do you teach?
Like you said, I tell my guys, in the room, what advantage does an offense have over defense? They know the play. Offense, they know the play. Defensively, we don't know the play. So, but I'm a big believer that 70% of our success defensively happens pre-snap. So we have to close that gap already that the advantage that the offense already has. So my job is teaching them, hey, first of all, the down and distance. So they got to understand down and distance. They also got to understand field zones. I think that's one thing that is one of the most underutilized things when coaches teaching players of just not the down and distance, but understanding, hey, where are we at on the field? Because what offenses do in certain areas of field, man, you can predicate that defensively because some teams are very heavy tendency in certain parts of the field. That's a big part, down the distance field zone. Where are we at on the field zone? What's the personnel? What do they like to do in that personnel? Are they a heavy run, heavy pass? And then out of that personnel set, okay, hey, when we know we got, when we know we're facing a 10 personnel team and they're giving us a 3-by-1 on 1st and 10 with the back set 2 or back set away, these are the tendencies, these are things that we got to anticipate. So all those like little details like that is huge, man. For me as a coach, teaching those guys. But that's also film study. So I can't just teach it to them and say, hey, this is what it is. I got to show them that. They got to see it on film. So I got to make sure I have cut-ups of it. I'm a big guy, you read it, you watch it, you rep it. Those three, like you were just saying, that there's so many guys that learn differently. They all don't learn the same. So, there are some guys that do really good just reading it. And there's some guys that don't. Then you add the other aspect of, all right, watching it. Maybe he didn't really understand the read part, but now you bring the watch part to, okay, shit, that makes sense. Now I can see it visually. And then obviously rep it. I do a ton of pre-practice bucket work, taking guys out there, man. And it's, to me, as football players, I've always learned a long time. And I've been guilty, man. I keep guys in meetings way too damn long and watch film way too long because I love it. I'm a film junkie guy and I can sit and watch film all day, but I come from I learned a long time ago, man, that these guys learn best and they do best when you get them out there on the field and moving.
Amen.
So I do a ton of that, man. Like I said, a lot of early pre-practice stuff with those guys to help prepare them. But there's so much to the game and so much of an advantage that the offense has over defense that, we have to do everything we can to close that gap of the advantage that the offense has. Because at the snap of the ball, that's now where, okay, hey, we're now on an even playing field. And, even outside of just the down the distance personnel field zone is defensive movement, man. I'm a huge believer in stemming, moving, capturing the eyes of a QB, capturing the eyes of the offensive line. Because now, even though that they know the play, now we may give them one look to where now they have a predetermined plan where they need to attack like an offensive line. Okay, well, this linebacker kind of, I know we talked one time before just watching film. If this linebacker is aligned here, and let's say this lineman has a 3 technique, but this backer's aligned here, and if that backer's tight, well, they're going to block a certain way. Well, if that backer's loose, well, they're going to have to block a certain way. So, I teach that heavily to my guys because it's all about gaining an advantage. That's football, all right? And you got it. That's one play at a time. What can we do to gain an advantage in this specific play to win this one play? And then can we do it for 60 plays a game, 65? And I think that's what really determines who wins and loses football games.
Love it. Today's episode is presented by American Football IQ. One of the biggest challenges coaches face right now is this. Players are seeing more football than ever, but they are not always learning how to understand the game in full context. They watch clips, they see highlights, but they don't always learn how to recognize coverage, identify fronts, understand leverage, or connect what is happening before and after the snap. That is why tools that help teach football IQ matter. American Football IQ is built to help players learn the game visually through flashcards that train recognitions, coverages, fronts, protections, gap control, the kind of things players have to see faster if they want to play fast. This is not just about memorizing terms. It's about helping players recognize patterns quicker, process information faster, and play with more confidence when the ball is snapped. So whether you're coaching quarterbacks, skill guys, linemen, or just looking for a better way to teach the game, check out American Football IQ and see how they are helping players build real understanding that carries to the field. You can start with Volume 1 or get the full bundle at AmericanFootballIQ.com. There is also an online community that can be accessed on the AmericanFootballIQ.com website, where each flashcard has a video explaining it in more detail with film. Play fast. A friend of mine, Freddie Kieho, who's a linebacker at San Diego State, then for the Colts, played in 2 Super Bowls, a Super Bowl champion in 1. He's one of the smartest linebacker, one of the smartest football guys I've ever talked to. And so we've actually met in here in my operations center and talk ball. And he could still go and recap the exact acronym that he was taught as a linebacker that had his alignment assignment technique, his visual keys. What type of acronyms do you have for your guy?
I use the term CASKR. So CASKR. So call, alignment, stance, keys, responsibility. And that's the progression. So anytime I'm installing, first and foremost, when I do install, there's 3 things that are extremely important for me as a coach. Because coaches, to be a great coach, you got to be a great teacher. I'm a huge believer in that. So I got to be able to teach really well to these guys for them to be able to learn. There's 3 aspects that goes in me when I'm teaching and installing. And there's 3 in these same aspects that players are learning. So the players, they got to know what to do. And then the second thing is they got to know how to do it. And the third thing is know why. So when we got something new that I'm installing, okay, we gotta know what to do, we gotta know how to do it, and hey, why do we do it? And I'm a big believer that once players, even coaches, man, we're learning stuff. If we understand the why of things, we don't forget them. It's stuck with us. If you're kind of unsure of what the why is, man, I don't really know why I'm supposed to do this, you're gonna forget. Then that's where inconsistencies come. So when I am installing, if I do have a play, that's always the first and foremost thing. Got to know what to do, how to do, and why. And then we follow the term CASKR. All right. Well, here's the call. Okay, everybody understands what the call is. All right. What's the next progression? Okay, the next progression is your alignment, because you can't effectively execute your assignment if you don't have the call and you don't have the proper alignments. It starts there. And then the third thing, all right, is what's my stance? Okay, am I an inside foot up? Am I an outside foot up? Based on what the call is, based on whatever, formation. Stance is key. I think there's so many guys that kind of get away from stances nowadays. It's a game of inches. If you have the incorrect stance, all that doing is now you're putting yourself that you may be taking 1, 2, 3 extra steps that's not even needed. So now you're slower. Now you're slower in your play. Now, if you have the proper stance and the proper footwork, now you're faster. And again, that right there, just your stance can make a huge difference of you making a play and not making a play, because it's a game of inches. And then the K is, keys. Okay, so I got the call. I know my alignment. I got my stance. All right, now what's my keys? Okay, what's my key within this call? For linebackers, we're a triangle read. All right, DBs, it's all based on coverage, what you're reading from a coverage standpoint. And then same thing for the D-lines, all based on, what their alignment is. And then at the end of the day is your responsibility. Okay, so what is your responsibility? And what I mean by responsibility, what is your run responsibility? And then what is your pass responsibility? And then also within that responsibility, I also teach the stemming part of understanding what your run fit is, understanding what your pass responsibility is. But then now, again, let's try to gain an edge to where, okay, how can I affect offense just from, I know my responsibilities. And I always say stem for success. Don't stem to screw yourself and put yourself in a bad position to execute. Because if you do that, it's pointless. And so you always stem for success to try to gain the edge within your run responsibility, within your pass responsibility. So yeah, that's the acronym, which is kind of crazy because we just had the CFL combine and then, we had all of our interviews for those that, we wanted to talk to. We're all interested in drafting, in the CFL draft. And, so when I got the linebackers, when the linebackers came in the room, that's what I did, man. I said, all right, I want to see what they know football wise. What is their football IQ? So I went up there on the board and I wrote CASKR, CASKR. And I was like, all right, can you repeat what that is? What does CASKR mean? And, those that rip it out, you're like, okay, all right. What I also like about those two is how does a player, how do they draw an offense? How do they draw an offensive line? How do they draw the receivers? Because if they're crisp, then you're like, okay, hey, this guy, he draws. He really draws a lot of football. And then if you guys got just the artwork of a circle and the square and the four, you're like, oh my gosh, he doesn't even draw football.
Yeah.
I find out a lot by, that too. But yeah, Castor.
This is exactly what I want, right? Like, I like that process and trying to deduce this. I'm thinking back to when we were coaching together. I was over the top on some things.
You're passionate, man. You love it. You're passionate.
I remember talking to this kid from the Boot Hill, and I'm like, "What's your favorite full field read?" And he's like, "What are you even talking about?" I'm trying to ask, I'm trying to deduce, do they know what read families are? Am I going to be starting from scratch? Because that's what I wanted to do when I recruited.
Everybody didn't understand what you meant by full field. What full field?
Yeah. Like, what do you mean, dude? And that's part of my goal is being able to help with language. But I think you hit something really important. You'd mentioned if they understand it, if they understand why, they'll never forget it. And I think like the concepts are the key thing, understanding concepts, because you could call it whatever you want to call it, from one place to another, but being able to really drill that home. That's good, man. I love hearing that, and as an offense, designing an offensive run scheme, or pass pro, we teach offensive linemen that they're either going to play their gap that they're lined up in, they're going to chart that gap, or they're going to either spike into another gap. And if they spike, somebody's going to loop. And if nobody loops, somebody's going to stick, right? And if nobody's there, then go look for work, right? So, that's like, we're trying to find the inverse from both sides. And, that's part of my journey too, creating stuff that both sides could use, because I think understanding the rules will allow you to understand it like a pro, destroy like an artist. And I'm stealing from another coach that I've heard on this podcast too on that.
I love it.
Yeah. Understand like a pro, destroy like an artist. I'm trying to remember.
I'm going to steal that. I've never heard that, but I did now, and I'm going to steal it.
I did not come up with that, and I'll have to in the show notes. Pretty sure Keith will know who that was. So we've kind of already talked about it, already talked about meeting room, but once they are in the meeting room, say that we're in fall camp, how are we going through our film study? Are you grade them? What are your grading components? What does that look like?
So from a grading standpoint, yeah, I do grade them. I grade them. I use, just a plus minus. Does he execute his job? Does he not execute? Just from that aspect. But then I'm big on point of attack grading. I think that's where guys are really evaluated. Because, you can find a guy that knows his job that can go out and execute just from an assignment standpoint. But, the point of attack grade is the guy, is he making plays? Is he not making plays? So that's a big part of my grading with the guys. Because at the end of the day, man, if you're there and your point of attack grade is not good, well, we got to find somebody else, just from a point of attack grade. And there's so many guys like, man, I graded high. I had a really good high game grade, man. Why should I be playing more? And I'm like, okay, well, are you making plays?
Right.
Are you making the plays at point of attack? And I've been around guys that know their job and they're really consistent just from a assignment standpoint. But man, they struggle making plays. Well, if they're out there and they ain't making plays, they ain't helping you win football games. It just is what it is. That's a fact. So, but yeah, no, I do that, and I'll do a production chart within that too. Tackles, TFL, sacks, hands on the ball, coverage sack, guys get points. So there is a whole nother table that I do from a grading in regards to production. So I'm a big production guy, point of attack guy. They better be, if they're playing, they better be able to, they better have a high, execution grade. They better know what to do. So that, to me, that should be there. And if they're not, they shouldn't even be playing in the field. But like I said, it comes down to production, point of attack grades. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm big at with grading. And I do it in practice too. And I'll do I'll do like a player of practice, and the guys love it. It's one thing. So all right, so I'll kind of just go through as I'm watching, just do production. It's just basically just a production standpoint, point of attack, production, and then whoever that guy is who had the most production, who had the most, who had the best point of attack, and then I'll find their old college picture. I'll find some type of college picture of them, and because all these guys here, especially at the professional level, they don't really know too much about each other from a background standpoint of college, and it's always good. And I always see it, the guys like, not when they see like their professional picture, but when they you put up a college picture, or if I can find a high school picture of them, I'll put that up, and it's always pretty cool. And so I try to do that every day, and
love that.
And just something just like a little incentive, you're building a little bit of competition within the room, and everybody's now competing against each other. They want to be that guy. And so, yeah.
I'm thinking of, defensive meetings I've been in when I visited staffs. Do you track attempts to strip the ball? Is that something that you track? Well, like you mentioned hands on the ball.
Yep.
So that's part of that. Okay.
Absolutely. We do 5. So 5 attempts of practice. So we don't strip it, but I need to see on film that we are attempting a peanut punch, a strip. We have to have at least 5 attempts every single practice.
Per player?
No, by the unit.
The whole group.
Yeah, just by the unit.
Got it. No, that's good. I think that's really good. And, just from an offensive guy's perspective, not teaching defense, when is the right time to try to attempt to get the ball out, and when is not the right time to attempt to get the ball out?
I think the right time, I know you offensive guys, man, like, man, just let the guy run. Let him run through. So within the box, yes, always attempt. Now, what I don't like is the grabbing and the twisting and trying to rip, pull guys away. That's where guys get hurt. But within the box, man, it is all about the punch. It is all about the strips, the rips and strips. But now once they get more to the second level or out on the perimeter, that's where it just needs to be a peanut punch, or if you're coming behind, the circle chase. We still want to get a hand on it, but there ain't nothing in regards to like lifting an arm or getting hands on the player. It's more of just focus on the ball and just get a little punch on the ball, or circle chase. But as far as anything grabbing, that's within the box. And again, when we are grabbing, we're not grabbing to hold up the guy. We're not grabbing to try to twist out. So it's just a quick attempt with it and then let the guy go.
Love it. Kind of going off on a tangent here, but I've heard college coaches, when they're recruiting linebackers, they want guys that were running backs.
Yeah.
To play that position. Is that something that you guys do when you're looking and evaluating players?
Yeah, I don't necessarily that I or we look for running back type guys, but if we do find a guy that has a running back background, it's great because he understands vision within the box. He understands the footwork that a running back has of the lateral to vertical to the jump cut. It's really very similar footwork of a running back to a linebacker of what we got to match. And like I said, the vision, the vision is very similar from a running back to a linebacker. So yeah, anytime I know I got a linebacker that, has running back background, I think it's a pretty big plus.
Love it. So I've visited pro teams for OTAs. I've been on the field there. I've been in major college programs. I've been a part of a major college program, and then I've gone to practices. When I've watched defenses work, I always like standing behind the defensive backs, and I want to see how well they communicate with one another as it relates to splits and as it relates to what's going on when they're not in. How important is that to get those reps vicariously when you're not in?
Oh, huge. Oh, absolutely huge. Because if they're not physically getting the rep, they need to mentally take the rep. And that's something I do a ton of. Like we do our pre-practice, we do a pre-practice team walkthrough. I'll have the first 2 groups mirroring each other. I have the first group's up, second group is right behind them, and they're about 4 yards behind, and then I'm behind them. So I'm like, all right, I'm here, and I want to see what they're seeing. I want to hear them communicate. We should be matching everything. We all should be all in unison. If we're doing it right, and guys know it should be all in unison. If some guys, if it's not and it's all jacked up, then hey, I got to do a better job as a coach because we're missing something. Now I got to coach it. You know what I'm saying? So that is critical. And then if we're just doing 12 up here, be 12 guys out there, but then I'll have those 2 backers behind the DBs. I'll have 2 guys back there, and it still should look the exact same. They still should be mirrored, but now they're not in there. They're further back. So now that's every day. I have those guys mirror their position every single day. I think that's critical. That guys are always taking reps, man. You can't. And there's so many guys that, okay, well, it's not my turn. I'm not in there, and they lose focus, and then like, no, man. Well, at the end of the day, what do you want out of this game? Do you want to be a guy? Do you want to be a starter? Do you want to be great? What do you want? But if you're just only taking physical reps, you're not getting better. You should always be taking some type of rep, whether it's physical or mental.
That's really good. So a mentor of mine he could coach any position. I've talked to you about him, Bill Williams. He used to have his linebackers when he coached. He has linebackers wear hats in the off season. He'd have them forward sometimes, backwards sometimes, and it all had to do with, the vision. So if he had the Bill forward, he wanted them to like lock in, not have their eyes go everywhere, right? And have you ever done anything like that, for like vision purposes for linebackers?
No, that's interesting. No, I would like to talk to you more on that. But no, the thing that I really liked, I think we talked about it before though too, is just more the stripe on the helmet.
Yeah.
Like those guys in camp will put, stripes on the helmet that way. I can see it. I can see it on film, where that stripe is looking. Is the stripe straight? Is it over here? that tells you a lot where their vision is. Now, you get some really damn good linebackers, and I think it helps too because it does, with the backers. And I think that's why so many guys wear the visors too. Obviously, you hide your vision. You want to give your eyes away. But those guys are able to learn with that because they see on film, they can see themselves on film and their stripe moving. They're like, okay, damn, I'm really giving this away. And, but then they end up learning how to really keep their head and everything straight and then now really move their eyes without moving their head. And I think the really great players are able to do that and not give so much away, which, you see it on offense too. You can look at an offensive lineman, you could tell when he's pulling or where he's stepping just because they're damn looking, their head's moved or, same thing if you got an offset tight end. If he's looking across, then he's going backside.
Unless he's really savvy and he's just like trying to dupe you.
That's right. Well, you're just telling me you're going, but
for sure.
No, yeah. So yeah, stripe, but no, that's very interesting to hear the hat deal.
I'll dig into that a little bit more on that end. But no, I'm intrigued by the linebacker position and defense. And like I told you, I wish I would have GA'd at that and coached that at a younger age. So Marcus, throughout, you've been around a lot of good coaches. You've been around a lot of coaches that have done a lot for the game. What was either one or multiple coaches? What were some great lessons that you learned football IQ wise?
The first and foremost, man, to me is when I was young, getting into, knowing I was wanting to be, obviously defense coach. I know I wanted to be a D coordinator. And even to this day, man, but when I started getting into it, I was so fixated on, me. And when you're young, you're still learning, how to coach your own position. You're still trying to learn, DB techniques, linebacker techniques, D-line stuff. You're still trying to learn those things and grow your knowledge as a position coach. But as you get older and you feel, okay, hey, you got a pretty good solid foundation of mastering your own position type. It's really jumping on the other side of football, learning and talking and clinicking and visiting with guys on the opposite side. Because at the end of the day, for us, defensively, we're trying to stop you guys, offensive guys. And in order to stop and to be a dominant defense, you have to understand offense. You have to understand how does an offense attack certain looks? How do they, if an offense knows they're seeing quarters, what are their concepts? How do they like to attack that? Offensive line, when they see certain fronts, how do they protect? How do they ID the box? How do they ID by the player's number? Okay, hey, 55 is the mic. Now they're trying to find 55 and IDing 55 as the mic. Or they IDing based on the position of where the mic is, you know what I'm saying? So, usually, and then you can kind of take that to advantage. So if they're always IDing by a number, okay, hey, now they ID him as mic. Now I'm going to move him around a little bit and try to manipulate things.
Right.
And the same thing, understanding how an offense IDs the box. And then, quarterback, what's a quarterback's first pre-snap read? All right. And what is his read progressions? If we see certain concepts, what does he like to look at first? And I think that's something, for me going as a coach that I really done a ton of is really jumping on the other side of the ball. That's the one thing I tell young guys that are getting into coaching or been coaching. I'm like, dude, make sure you spend a lot of time on the opposite side of football. You got to grow your knowledge on that side and understand what it is that they're trying to do to beat you. Because the more you understand what they're trying to do to beat you, now you're putting yourself in a better position to, now you can counteract it. Now you're ready to go, and you can even now use that knowledge to teach your players and have them understand it.
Oh, that's so good. I love getting on calls with guys that have had to problem solve and, game plan. There's nothing like game planning and being with your group and talking through it and putting your plan together and then seeing it unfold, right? And so that's where all the research over the years in the off season really comes to it comes to fruition because you have minimal time there. But one of the fun things to hear is when offenses are able to give a fake declaration.
Yeah.
Right. And then start messing and knowing how a defense is built. And if you start giving a fake declaration, then the other side sees, oh crap, everything we've studied has no relevance on that. But what happened? You mess them up. So that's kind of fun cat and mouse there, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this game of football, man. It is like you said, it's a cat and mouse. It's chess, not checkers. It is a constant back and forth, and it's just one move at a time. And at the end of the day, it's, you just got to make sure you're making more moves than the other opponent to win the game. That's key. So that's the beautiful thing about the game of football, man. It's like, I learn new things every day. I mean, I'm learning things every single day. There's so much about this game that's still out there that I still know. 20 plus years coaching, man, there's still a lot that I can learn that's still out there that I don't know. That's the beautiful thing about this, man. There's just still so much out there, so much knowledge you can pick up from people. And like I was just talking about, just getting out and visiting and clinicking and just talking ball with people, man. If you can pick up one thing, dude, that's a win. It's a win. You ain't got to pick up 5, 10. Do you pick up one thing, it's a win. But you'll never be able to do that if you don't get out and put in that time to put in that effort to meet people and learn and talk football.
For sure. Well, I wanted to ask you something not necessarily football related, but what's the wildest thing about coaching in Canada? Is it the weather? Is it the fans? Or is it the poutine obsession?
All above right there. The wildest thing, man, the fans up here are phenomenal. The atmosphere of games is awesome. Obviously you got the NFL, which is the biggest league in the world. And, to me, you got the CFL, which is the second biggest league in the world. And the fans are so passionate up here, just like what we know in the States of NFL fans. How NFL fans are passionate in the NFL, and then, the CFL fans are the same way about the CFL game up here. The CFL is the NFL to them. To be around that, man, it's awesome. The fans are fantastic. The atmospheres are unbelievable. A lot of people don't really understand that because, when I meet people, oh, you coach in CFL and, what's it like? And, I'll show them what a stadium looks like. They're like, oh my gosh, it's like just like the NFL. And it's, so they're blown away with that. But yeah, the poutine, that's another one, man. You come up here, you see poutine on every menu you go to, and they got poutine specials. And so, yeah, I've kind of grown myself into enjoying some poutine up here in Canada. I think if I didn't enjoy that, I might get kicked out of here.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, the weather's awesome, man. I think it's, based on province, Calgary is one of the best cities in all of Canada in regards to weather. They get, I think they're the 5th or 6th most sunniest city in the world. As much sun. They get sun 300 something days a year. But I mean, it's snow, the snow up here, it's beautiful. We got the mountains, you got the river that goes right to the city. Now you got some provinces that are pretty brutal when it comes to the weather, the Saskatchewans and Manitobas. But here in Alberta, where Calgary's at, man, it's a pretty awesome spot. And then, you got the East Coast, West Coast, you got the Toronto, you got the BC. It's beautiful up here, man. The country's beautiful. People are great. Like I said, going my 5th year here, man, I've really enjoyed my time up here and really enjoying it.
That's awesome. I've always had great experiences when I've met people from Canada, whether here in the United States or, if we're down south. A lot of Canadians like to go down south.
I'm not saying A yet. I know going off 5th year, they love to say A, but I ain't done that yet, but
You're still saying y'all, and you still got that Missouri sound, man.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I've always appreciated your time that you've been willing to spend with me and the knowledge that you've been willing to share with me. I think you're a phenomenal coach. You're big. Thank you. I appreciate it. Big on relationships. Just wish you and your family well, man, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Appreciate it, brother.
Well, awesome, brother. Appreciate you having me on, man. You're doing a hell of a job. And then again, the feeling's mutual, man. You're a hell of a ball coach and very bright football mind guy. So what you're doing for the game is awesome.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for joining us for Football IQ presented by American Football IQ. If you want to help your players see the game better, think faster, and understand more, go check out American Football IQ and what they're building for players, coaches, and parents. That's at AmericanFootballIQ.com or click the link in the description. Follow all we're doing at Coach and Coordinator Network and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.